flower pot. That will do. Now, here I come along, thinking of nothing. She started walking toward the flower pot. Then, suddenly in front of me, there stands a plasmoid snatcher. She stopped in mid-stride. Handbag and strap vanished as her right hand slapped the porgee pouch. The Denton popped into her palm. The flower pot screeched and flew apart. "Golly!" she said, startled. "Come, Fido." Handbag and strap reappeared, and she reached out and caught the strap. She looked around at Commissioner Tate. "Sorry about your pot, Holati. I was just going to shake it up a little. I forgot you people had been handling my gun. I keep it switched to stunner myself when I'm carrying it," she added pointedly. "Perfectly all right about the pot," the Commissioner said. "I should have warned you. Otherwise, I'd say all you need is a moment to see them coming." Trigger spun the Denton to its stunner setting and laid it back inside the slit which had appeared along the side of the porgee pouch. She ran thumb and fingertip along the length of the slit, and the pouch was sealed again. "That's the part that's worrying me," she admitted. When Trigger presented herself at Commissioner Tate's personal quarters early that evening, she found him alone. "Sit down," he said. "I've been trying to get hold of Mantelish for the past hour. He's over on the other side of the planet again." Trigger sat down and lifted an eyebrow. "Should he be?" "I don't think so," said Holati. "But I've been overruled on that. He's still the best man the Federation has working on the various plasmoid problems, so I'm not to interfere with his investigations any more than I can show is absolutely necessary. It's probably all right. Those U-League guards of his aren't a bad group." "If they compare with the boys the League has watching the Plasmoid project, they should be just about tops," Trigger said. "The Space Scouts thank you for those kind words," the Commissioner told her. "Those weren't League guards. When it came to deciding who was to keep an eye on you, I overruled everybody." She smiled. "I might have guessed it. What's there for the professor to be investigating on the other side of Manon?" "He's hunting for some theoretical creatures he called wild plasmoids." "Wild plasmoids?" "Uh-huh. His idea is that some of the plasmoids the old galactics were using on Manon might have got away from them. Or just been left lying around, so to speak, and could have survived till now. He thinks they might even be reproducing themselves. He's looking for them with a special detector he built." Trigger held up a finger on which was a slim gold ring with a small green stone in it. "Like this one?" she asked. "He's got a large version of that type of detector with him, too. But he thinks if any wild plasmoids are around, they're likely to be along the lines of 113A. So he's also constructed a detector which reacts to 113A." "I see." Trigger was silent a moment. "Does Mantelish have any idea why Repulsive is the only plasmoid known to which our ring detectors don't react?" "Apparently he does," Holati said. "But when he starts in on those subjects, I find him difficult to follow." He looked soberly at Trigger. "There are times," he confessed, "when I suspect Professor Mantelish is somewhat daft. But probably he's just so brilliant that he keeps fading beyond my mental range." Trigger laughed. "My father used to come home from a session with Mantelish muttering the same sort of thing." She glanced at the ring again. "By the way, have any plasmoids actually been stolen around here for us to detect?" He nodded. "Quite a few have been snitched from Harvest Moon in various storage points by now. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them turned up here in the dome eventually. Not that it's a serious loss. What the thieves have been getting away with is small stuff, plasmoid nuts and bolts, so to speak. Still, each of those would still fetch around 100,000 credits if you offered them to the right people. Incidentally, if asking you to this conference has interfered with any personal plans, just say so. We can put it off until tomorrow. Especially since it's beginning to look as if Mantelish won't make it here either." "Either?" Trigger said. "Quillen's already had to cancel. He got involved with something during the afternoon." "Oh," she said coolly. She looked at her watch. "I do have a dinner date with Brule Inger in an hour and a half. But you said this meeting wasn't to take more than an hour anyway, didn't you?" He nodded. "Then I'm free. My quarters are arranged and I'm ready to go back to my old job in the morning." "Fine," said the Commissioner. "There are things I wanted to discuss with you privately anyway. If we can't get through to Mantelish in another 10 minutes, we'll go ahead with that. I would have liked to have Quillen here to fill us in with data about some of the top-level crooks in the hub. They're a specialty of his. I don't know too much about them myself." He paused. "That Lyad Ermetyne now," he said, "looks as if she either already is part of the main problem or is working very hard to get there. She's had a Tranest warship stationed here for the past 2 weeks. A thing called the Aurora." Trigger was startled. "But warships aren't allowed in the Manon system?" "It isn't in the system. It's stationed about a half light year away, where it has a legal right to be. Nothing to worry about as such. It's just a heavy-armed frigate, which is the limit Tranest is allowed to build. Since it's Lyad's private boat, I imagine it's been souped up with everything they could throw in. Anyway, the fact that she sent it here ahead of her indicates she isn't just dropping in for a casual visit." "She made that pretty clear herself," Trigger said. "Why do you think she's being so open about it?" He shrugged. "Might have any number of reasons. One could be that she'd get the BDI anyway as soon as she showed up here. When Lyad goes anywhere, it's usually on business. After Quillan reported on your dinner party, I got all the information I could on her. The First Lady stacks up as a tough cookie, and also smart. Most of those Ermetynes wind up being dead-brained by some loving relative, and apparently they have to know how to whip up a sharp brew of poison before they're let into kindergarten. Lyad's been top dog among them since she was 18. His head turned. A bell had begun pinging in the next room. He stood up. "Probably Mantelish's outfit on the transmitter," he said. "I told them to call as soon as they located him." He stopped at the door. "Care for a drink, Trigger girl? You know where the stuff is." "Not just now, thanks." The Commissioner came back in a couple of minutes. "Darn fool got lost in a swamp. They found him finally, but he's too tired to come over now." He sat down and scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Do you remember the time you passed out on the Harvest Moon?" he asked. Trigger looked at him, puzzled. "The time I what?" "Passed out. Fainted. Went out cold." "I? You're out of your mind, Holati. I've never fainted in my life." "Reason I ask," he said, "is that I've been told a spell in a rest cubicle same thing as a rest cubicle anyway, only it's used for therapy sometimes resolves amnesias." "Amnesias? What are you talking about?" The Commissioner said, "I'm talking about you. This is bound to be a jolt, Trigger girl. Might have been easier after a drink, but I'll just give it to you straight. About a week after Mantelish and his U-League crew first arrived here, you did pass out on one occasion while we were on the Harvest Moon with them. And afterwards, you didn't remember doing it." "I didn't," Trigger said weakly. "No. I thought it might have cleared up and you just had some reason for not wanting to mention it." He got to his feet. "Like that drink now, before I go on with the details?" She nodded. End of chapter 16.